Yeah, what's going on YouTube? This is P from PBKM, and this week I'm doing movie reviews again. And this time I am reviewing a few movies. So let's go ahead and get started and try and get through this as quickly as possible, eh? Okay, first movie, Friends with Benefits. Basically, these are it's Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis. And basically, the premise is the two of them get dumped at the beginning of the movie, and basically, pretty much end up meeting one another, as she's a headhunter and he's a potential talent that needs to be sought. And basically, they start to hang out after she does get placed in his new job. But here's the funny part. They both are hanging out and decide they don't like each other, like a relationship and such, as they're basically talking about relationships and how stupid movies are that deal with relationships over basically hanging out time, I guess. And so they tried to basically see if it's possible to have sex without having the emotions and relationship into it. Now, all in all, not a bad premise for a movie. It was funny. It wasn't quite as funny as I would hoped it would be, but was definitely good. Said I'm going to try my best not to rate it, because you can go see it if you want. It's kind of how I feel about it. It's not something I would tell you to avoid. So it was actually funny. It's funny. And well, pretty much by the end of it, needless to say, they end up basically a lot closer to each other. But they don't get married or anything like that at the end. So, interesting movie. And on to the next movie. And the next movie is Barbarian Queen, 1985 film. Yeah, the title's misleading. There's actually two movies to this. There's a part one and a part two. I've seen part one, haven't seen part two yet. Here, part two is the better of the two. But basically, on her wedding day, her village is attacked, because I don't know the heroine's name. And her and basically three other friends basically go to liberate their entire village from the knights that basically kidnapped them. Basically, lots of breasts and sexual innuendo. Said it's not softcore porn, but it ain't too far from it either. There's actually just enough storyline per se to make it so, and not quite enough gratuitous nudity, but it is alright. Not very amazing, but basically to sum this movie up, violence and boobs. That's basically this whole movie. And I got some horrible movies on this list. On to the next movie. Some type of B-movie kick. The next movie is Trancers, aka Future Cop. Jack Death is basically a tragic cop whose wife dies, and he basically devotes his life to catching and killing Trancers. So the council has basically appointed him to stop basically a felon that has traveled back in time and is wiping out their ancestors to basically eliminate them. Jack Death is supposed to send him back through time so that he can be pretty much held accountable for his crimes. This basically does not happen, as the bad guy's name is Whistler, just so you know. Basically what happens is Jack kills Whistler, ends up stuck back in time, meets a girl, and gets married. Not necessarily in that order. So, very interesting movie. It's definitely a B movie, because, if it's Castle Rock, come on now. But it is an interesting movie, and it seems to have quite a few of them. As a matter of fact, the next movie is its sequel, Trancers 2, aka Future Cop 2. And this one, they actually send back Jack's wife in time to basically try and complete a mission to basically kill Whistler's brother. In this one, he has to basically balance the time between his wife in the past and his wife from the future. And as it breaks down, because they got his wife like the day before she was basically killed, she has to go back basically alone. Jack chooses not to go back, but they basically kill all the Trancers that they can and also take care of Whistler's brother. It's actually kind of fun watching because there's just so much gratuitous violence and shooting in this movie. It's just crazy. So it's real easy to get caught up in. But, you know, it's not necessarily a movie that you necessarily will go run home to watch. This is definitely probably a drinking night and buddies over type of movie. But all in all, it was enjoyable. And we move on to the next title. The next title is a sci-fi movie. That's kind of all that really needs to be said. But the name of the movie is Sharknado. It's sharks and tornadoes. That's the synopsis. But basically what happens is they have some basic flooding and sharks are pretty much attacking people. So the streets are flooded with sharks, and then, oh, wouldn't you know it, comes water spouts to actually pick the sharks up and turn into hurricanes. I mean, my bad. Tornadoes, not hurricanes. That would be so much worse. But basically, in these tornadoes with nothing but sharks that are just eating people as they get thrown into it, the way that they decide to basically kill off this threat is to drop bombs into the tornadoes, because, you know, that would totally disrupt a tornado because of how they're formed, with hot and cold storms meet. Yeah. Anyway, in not so many words, this movie is stupid, but seeing the people get eaten is actually quite enjoyable. And basically everyone seems to have some type of negative backstory with sharks. But basically, if you watch nothing else of this movie, it is worth watching the sharks eat people in midair, and the chainsaw kills with the sharks. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Next movie, please. Next movie technically needs to go on my messed up movie list. It's called The Loved Ones. First of all, good people get messed up in this movie, but evil is killed by the end. In not so many words, without necessarily spoiling the plot, and even if I do, you still need to go watch it anyway. But basically, it's prom time, and we meet this guy. He's going with his girlfriend to the prom and such, and his homeboy is going to the prom with some girl he asked as well and such, and pretty much he basically is then asked by this kind of mousy girl on the side, so to speak, that she wants to know if he'll take her to the prom. Well, the answer is no, because he's already basically going to the prom with someone else. Said you'd think that'd be the end of it, you know, and he's even nice about it, so there's no real problems there. But anyway, he basically goes home and we find out that he has a conflicted past after some other stuff happens. But basically his father was killed in a car crash, which incidentally ties in with the storyline later. But not so many words. The fact that his father was killed in a car crash and his mom kind of blames him for it but still worries about him, as moms tend to do, basically sets up a lot of the premise for kind of what happens next. He basically goes and rushes out like most teenage kids would and goes rock climbing with his dog. And in not so many words, things get crazy from there. He is kidnapped by the girl's father, who asked if he would like to go with her to the prom, and is basically dressed in clothing and left to actually be at their little private prom. And from there it gets weird, and it gets weirder, because first of all, this is not the first time they've done this. And they have most of them in the basement. And they ain't functional no more as people. And basically he tries to escape, which he gets caught and is really turned up with the torture. Oh, did I forget to mention there was torture. And from then on it gets stranger. And basically by the end of it, the cavalry comes and the cavalry gets killed. But by the end of it, he does manage to get loose and save his girlfriend, who the crazy girl is going to go kill. Said, now I will say this. I do not know how fast 130 kilometers per hour is. But apparently, it wasn't enough to kill her. I'm going to leave it at that. You should totally watch it. And oh yes, the girl's name is Violet, and she only had a knife in hand when that thing with the car happened. So, enjoy that. Next movie. Next movie, Warm Bodies. Okay, I heard about this one. Seemed all nice and whatnot. Basically, it's a zombie movie, but this one zombie seems to be regaining a cognitive way of thinking, as well as the other zombies. And apparently, they even show us the next phase of zombieism, which is apparently the bony stage, where you just turn to angry, hungry skeletons. So, in not so many words, here's what happens. The zombie longs for love, meets a girl, doesn't eat her, eats her ex-boyfriend though, and basically falls in love with such said girl. Takes her home rather, hangs out with her, and basically also delivers her back home. Realizes he has feelings for her and goes back for her. At the same time, the other zombies he sees days by day in the airport also seem to be gaining additional consciousness. And basically by the end of it, they have a big fight with the bonies and with the humans because they team up. And lo and behold, the zombies come back to life through the power of love. Yeah, I thought that was pretty sappy and hokey too. It's one of those that you're glad your friend rents, not you? Yeah. Chick flick material. Possibly. But I'm not even sure if chicks will dig this. Next movie. The next movie, Resiklo. Okay, this is a foreign film. Basically, the reason I watched it, I was told that there were mechs involved. I like mechs. Okay, they weren't lying. But they're really, really simple mechs at the beginning. And then we get the good mech payoff at the end. For the most part, the story doesn't pick up till the end, but this is the layout. Earth has been invaded, and it's been invaded by a few years. The main character's family dies in this event. He feels very sorry and conflicted about it, but continues to fight the Mutano invasion. Basically, as it's revealed later, the Mutanos are basically capturing and storing humans, but running tests on some of them. The idea is they're apparently a food source of some sort. But while they're on Earth, they're busy trying to basically wipe out humanity, just for the heck of it. So they have some humans that they've turned into Mutanos or whatever it is at this point. And they have basically been fighting for a while. Well, one of these guys begins to reconnect with his human roots and basically assists the conflicted soldier in fighting back. And then along the way, we find out that the various children companions that have joined our hero also are part Mutanano, with that blood running through them as well as human blood. And it's giving them abilities like Basically, being able to sense what's going on without having actual sight, teleportation, and I don't know what the other person's power was because I'm not sure they had any. But basically, this is what it comes down to. So they have their big clash at the end, and they basically are able to destroy the Mutano threat, so to speak. Although at the end it leaves room for a sequel, although I'm hoping it'll never happen. Highlights of this is that this thing is so 80s based that it's not even funny. They have a group called the Bad Boys, and they're basically like a bunch of knuckleheads. And they ride BMXs and shoot people while on the BMXs. Oh gosh, everything teenage from the 80s, and I mean borderline preteen, teenage, is basically tied into this movie. If it had happened a little bit later, I'm pretty sure we'd have seen kids dressed like Crisscross in it, man. They tried to stuff everything into it. And they even spout out American phrases and actually sing bits and pieces to We Are the World. It's interesting, but it's so stupid. Very horrible movie, but on a better note, we're gonna move on to the next movie, which is the last movie, by the way. Well, if you guys haven't figured out, I'm into horror movies. I like comedies too, but I'm mostly into horror movies. So I got one more for you, and this is the last movie. All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. It's a slasher flick, although there's not a whole lot of slashing. It's more like I kill you with shotguns, and yeah, maybe a little bit of slashing since I have a machete. It's basically a bunch of high schoolers, and at the very beginning, it starts off with a guy, basically, who was the best friend at the time, I'm assuming, with Mandy Lane. And Mandy gets invited to a party. And he's basically invited to tag along via Mandy, not necessarily the guy who's having the party. Well, basically all the boys want to hook up with Mandy, and all the girls want to be Mandy, because Mandy is the shiz night. Yes. With problems with being the shiz night is she has the crazy loner kid as like her best friend. That should raise all sorts of red flags. Anyway, what basically starts off with the movie is the jock that invites him to the party. The weird kid basically has a conversation with him that basically ends with him suggesting the two of them should jump off the roof into the pool, which the jock does, but the weird guy doesn't. And the jock basically dies from this, and everyone now sort of hates the weird loner kid. Go figure. So basically, this is later. Mandy is invited to another party. This one by a smaller group of kids, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And the guys are basically hoping to score with Mandy, but Mandy's not having any of that crap. So basically, it's an exercise in basically watching a bunch of teenage girls trying to hook up with a bunch of teenage guys, which is disturbingly complicated. Even with cocaine and Ritalin and marijuana involved. Anyway, they get to the party, and basically there's a guy who's overseeing them, kind of keeping up with them, named Garth. Basically, long story short, all of them basically get killed except Mandy and Garth. It is not the typical slasher fare, though. There is some real plot twisting madness that happens towards the end. I'm not going to attempt to explain it. It's not that it's complicated. It's just highly unexpected. So, you should go watch for just the twist. But watch the whole thing, because it does start as a slow burn. But it picks up when it picks up. And it tries to keep running, but it decides to instead kind of do sprinting and such, because it's keeping its pace and such. And then it just kind of tears ass at the end. Anyway, though, it's an interesting movie. Not what I never saw coming. And if I said that this should be on my disturbing list, you know that there's some unusually sick twist. Now, it's not so sick to the point I feel I need to put it on my other channel per se, but yeah, it's pretty dark, twisted. But, you know, you don't see it coming, but at the same time, too. Maybe we should have. Well, that's it. That's all I got this week, and next week I don't know what I have, but I'll be probably watching other Trancer movies. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And also, too, I have information from my site, donations, anything beyond what you can do on YouTube in case you want to support. Because, you know, I accept support, and I always like new customers. And if you want to get down with what I do, said I even have a contact information so you can actually contact me if you are that interested in it. Sorry. Said that's that peanut butter sandwich catching up with me. Anyway, though, later, folks. Have a good one.